Why do some people seem to dislike you even when you've never done anything wrong to them? Why, despite your kindness, respect, and good intentions, do you sometimes receive cold looks, unfair criticism, or silent hostility? What if I told you that it's not always about you? What if that negativity is actually hiding something much deeper? The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spent much of his work exploring the psychological forces that lead people to reject, criticize, or even resent those who stand out. In this video, you'll discover why some people dislike you for no apparent reason, what that reaction reveals about them, and most importantly, how to turn it into a source of inner strength. Stay until the end, because Nietzsche's final lesson may completely change the way you view criticism, judgment, and the opinions of others. First, people don't always dislike you because of who you are. This is a difficult truth to accept. Most of the time, people aren't reacting to you. They're reacting to what you represent. You may be calm, ambitious, disciplined, or confident, yet some people will feel uncomfortable around you almost immediately. Why? Because your presence reminds them of the person they wanted to become but never did. When someone sees a quality in you that they wish they had developed in themselves, it creates inner tension. And that tension often turns into jealousy. And when jealousy goes unrecognized, it often transforms into criticism. Instead of admitting, "I wish I were more like that person," the mind chooses a safer path. "I just don't like them." It's easier, more comfortable, less painful for the ego. Nietzsche understood this psychological mechanism deeply. He believed that many judgments people make are not rooted in truth, but in resentment. Resentment is what happens when someone feels frustrated by what they cannot achieve, so they begin to devalue it instead. Second, your success often disturbs people more than your failure. Look closely at how society works. When someone fails, they usually receive sympathy. But when they succeed, criticism suddenly begins to appear. Why? Because success acts like a mirror. It reflects the efforts, sacrifices, and discipline that some people are unwilling to make. A person who consistently works on themselves reminds others of the excuses they keep repeating. A disciplined person highlights another person's lack of discipline. A courageous person silently exposes the fears that others continue to avoid. It's not your success that bothers them. It's the way your success makes them feel about themselves. Nietzsche believed that the most remarkable individuals are often misunderstood by the people around them. The further you go in life, the more likely you are to attract both admiration and hostility. That is often the cost of being different. Third, people fear what they don't understand. Human beings are naturally drawn to what feels familiar. What resembles the majority feels safe. What stands outside the norm can feel threatening. If you think differently, refuse to follow the crowd, or question commonly accepted beliefs, some people may see you as a threat. Not because you are wrong, not because you are harmful, but simply because you are different. Throughout history, innovators, creators, visionaries, and rebels have faced rejection long before they received recognition. When you refuse to live according to other people's expectations, you challenge their sense of certainty. And many people would rather criticize what they don't understand than take the time to understand it. Fourth, your confidence can make insecure people uncomfortable. And this is an important distinction, not arrogance. Confidence. A person who genuinely accepts themselves possesses a kind of quiet power that cannot be easily shaken. They don't constantly seek validation. They don't beg for approval. They don't shape their lives around other people's expectations. And that can be deeply unsettling to those who rely on external validation to feel worthy. Your self-confidence may be mistaken for arrogance. Your calmness may be mistaken for coldness. Your independence may be mistaken for indifference. The truth is, many people see the world through the lens of their own insecurities and emotional wounds. They don't always see who you really are. They see the story their fears tell them about you. Fifth, the more you grow, the more people you leave behind. This is a reality that many people struggle to accept. Personal growth always comes with a cost. As you evolve, certain relationships naturally begin to fade. People who felt comfortable with the old version of you may become uncomfortable with the new one. They preferred the version of you that hesitated, the version that doubted itself, the version that stayed where they were. But the moment you begin pursuing your goals with confidence and determination, some people see it as a form of betrayal. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your growth reminds them of the changes they never made. They don't necessarily want to grow alongside you. They want you to remain where you were. Nietzsche believed that becoming who you truly are often requires walking a lonely path, and that loneliness is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is evidence that you're moving in the right direction. Sixth, hatred is often admiration wearing a mask. At first, this idea sounds strange, but some forms of criticism actually conceal a kind of admiration. Think about it. Some people spend an extraordinary amount of time talking about the people they claim to dislike. They watch them. They follow them. They comment on them. They analyze everything they do. But why invest so much energy in someone who supposedly means nothing to you? Because on some level, that person occupies an important space in your mind. Obsessive dislike often reveals an unconscious fascination. This doesn't mean every criticism comes from jealousy, but it does mean that some forms of hostility are rooted in frustrated desire and unfulfilled ambition. Sometimes people resent in others the very qualities they secretly wish they possessed themselves. Seventh, what would Nietzsche advise? When faced with criticism, resentment, or hostility, what should you do? Should you try to please everyone? Should you constantly defend yourself? Should you change who you are just to gain acceptance? Nietzsche's answer would likely be no, because a life spent trying to satisfy everyone else's expectations is not an authentic life. The more you seek universal approval, the more you drift away from yourself. True freedom begins the moment you accept a simple but powerful truth. You cannot control what other people think about you. You can only control how you respond to their opinions. Criticism can break you, or it can become the fuel that pushes you forward. The choice has always been yours. So why do some people seem to dislike you for no apparent reason? Because sometimes you represent the person they wish they had the courage to become. Because your growth forces them to confront their own limitations. Because your differences challenge their assumptions. Because your confidence exposes their insecurities. And sometimes simply because you refuse to live according to their expectations. Remember this: the most extraordinary people in history were never loved by everyone. They were criticized, they were misunderstood, they were mocked, they were rejected. Yet they continued moving forward, not because they were immune to judgment, but because they refused to let judgment define them. So the real question is not, why do people dislike me? The real question is, will I allow their opinions to determine the direction of my life? If your answer is no, then you already possess a level of freedom that most people never achieve